Hi, good evening, Toastmasters and guests. My name is Aishwarya, and today I'm going to tell you about my story involving harmony, sanity, and COVID. So in December 2019, I was coming off of a period that mental health professionals now are calling climate anxiety. So it was sparked by the wildfires of Australia, and it affected me a lot because I was working much of 2019 building my project in Sydney. And just as I finished it, there was a danger of watching it burn down. So I was not in a very good place, but I had put some coping mechanisms in place that I figured out by December. But 2 months later, we are now stuck at home with two young children who have not spent a single weekend indoors ever since they were born. And I was stuck at home, and we're all struggling with work and balancing all of our different responsibilities and aging parents. So my brain was trying to balance between two major anxieties. There is the inevitable anxiety of climate change and the more immediate anxiety of coronavirus and outbreak. So I realized that the coping mechanism that I had in place with climate anxiety was actually perfectly capable of extending to cover what I was facing with COVID, and the same action plan still applied. And the action plan was living in harmony with nature. So I'd like to share how I went about it. But first, I can start with my definition of what harmony is. I believe um, nature and living in harmony with nature doesn't exactly mean giving up everything you own and living off the land, right? It has two major parts. One is listening, and the other is reacting. So you can, let's look at the listening part. So nature communicates in different ways, and it's not always wildfires and tsunamis and hurricanes, right? Yes, sometimes it can also communicate through expert opinion, helpful graphs, and David Attenborough and Greta Thunberg is still in training. But the key thing that we need to understand is that we need to listen to what is being said, whichever way it is presented. But enough has been said about the information. So let's go to the second part, which is reacting to what nature is telling us. And what do we do about it, especially now when our movements are still sort of restricted? So the thing that various mental health professionals have suggested is applicable, and it's like a 5-step process that I've put it down to. So number one is to get educated. You know, consume sources, read. There are lots of news articles. Talk it over with friends. Join a WhatsApp group, and I'm so happy to list that the Toastmasters group for Mother Earth does all of that perfectly. So let's just do that. The second one, the most critical brainwave that I had after COVID is mindful consumption. I love COVID in that I have stopped wearing clothes that are not comfortable. My feet don't know what it's like to wear shoes anymore, let alone uncomfortable shoes or expensive shoes or fashionable shoes. So if there's one thing that we take away from COVID into our lives long term, it would be what are we consuming and why are we consuming, and what kind of validation is it giving us when we are consuming on all these different things that are out there. The third thing that I find is useful was growing something, creating something from nothing. And most of us, and I can see my neighbors across as well, have started a quarantine garden. I started one outside my HDB window. It's a 7-inch garden, but it's spread across 12 feet. And it brings me so much satisfaction to work, touch any kind of green, even when I'm not allowed to go outside. And I'm so happy to note that I'm fully self-sufficient for all my herbs needs for my household. And I'm still, working on the spinach and the tomatoes to be fully self-sufficient. The fourth one is related, which is walking the talk, making lifestyle changes. So, for example, if the pandemic freaks you out, take time to clean the house. Go minimalistic. In my case, I had a fear of food shortage, and that sparked a initiative of zero food waste within the house. It was very simple. No food was going to go into the bin. So we started adopting a 1 to 2 main ingredient meals, one pot meals. And if there were any leftovers, they would get reinvented and then served for the next meal. But there was no food that went into the bin. And we sort of extended the same policy to water as well. I wanted to grow my quarantine garden at no extra cost to my utility bill. So any water that would, be left in the water bottles overnight, the kids haven't finished in their respective water bottles, every drop of water that would otherwise go down the drain, it went into my garden. And that really, really helped, and it made me feel really good. And the last one is knowing when to stop and disengaging and taking a break. Because sometimes that's what nature wants you to do. It needs you to come back refreshed and energized and inspire more people. So this COVID episode is a circuit breaker that I needed in my life. I needed to focus and introspect on what makes me happy. And I figured ultimately the only thing that gets me close to nature is if we bring friends. If what we do and how we live can influence anybody around us, like our children, our family, our friends, and the more change you inspire, the more harmony that you achieve. And after all, nature is not singular. It is all of us, including humans. And living in harmony is living in harmony with yourself, because we are all part of nature, COVID or no COVID. Thank you for listening.